As a movement, we were delighted when the Minister announced there was going to be a review of regulation, and Sue Essex was chosen along with 2 or 3 other colleagues to carry out that review. Sue is leading it, which is why we've called it the Essex Review. Just very briefly, a little bit of background on Sue. She's worked as a town planner, and I think on social work as well in the past, but probably most of you know her for a time as a councillor in Cardiff. She was first elected in 1983 to the council there, and more recently as an assembly member. She was elected to the first assembly government representing Cardiff North constituency back in 1997, and served until the last elections last May, when she retired. During her time at the Assembly, she had a range of ministerial posts, including planning, environment, transport, local government, public services, and finance, which I think must just be everything, doesn't it? Seems to be. I'm delighted that she's here today. She's probably spent a lot of time with a lot of your associations over the last few months. She spent at least 3.5 hours with my association last Wednesday. So I was worried whether you were still up for this or not after that, but I'm delighted she's here. Will you please give a warm welcome to Sue Essex.
What I would do, it's terrible when somebody introduces me as a planner, because planners are the equivalent to, well, they were equivalent of my kids to what being a policeman was equivalent to me when I was a kid. You know, if you met somebody whose father was a policeman, it was sort of pretty bad news. I thought what I'd do, and I haven't got any formal speech, and the professional Paul Griffiths will come after me with his PowerPoint presentations, would be just go through where I think we've come from, a bit about the terms of reference that we had, and what our initial thinking is around this whole area. And so I'll concentrate a bit around regulation, but it won't be exclusively around regulation. It won't actually be exclusively around housing associations. Just to start with, to say that I have a very strong commitment to housing, really. I was brought up with someone in absolutely awful housing accommodation as a youngster in London. And it probably stayed with me all my life. So I know what homelessness really means to families, and I know what poor conditions really means to individuals, and how that can affect their life chances and their health. And I was one of the lucky ones, and I will never forget that I'm one of the lucky ones. So for me, the strong drive really to get involved in politics came very much around the housing agenda, and certainly when I was a councillor in Cardiff and I represented Riverside and Pontcanna. On Riverside, which is the area, if you don't know it, the other side of the National Stadium, the other side of the TAF, housing was absolutely at the top of the agenda, and I saw some pretty bad conditions there, particularly in the private sector, and with some really bad social consequences. So in those days, when I was a councillor and the housing list was huge, housing was absolutely the top of the agenda. You would have to have done 20 years on the council before you stood a chance of getting on the housing committee. And to be chair of, well, you know, lifetime in the movement, and, you know, no newcomer ever got to doing that. And so it was somewhat of a strange experience to me to find how much housing had slipped off the political agenda. There was a lot of focus on stock transfer, understandably, a lot of focus perhaps on Welsh housing quality, but the whole issue of affordability, and those people who couldn't hit the standard of owner occupation or perhaps had special needs in some way, the whole issue of that really had for many years, and I don't quite understand why, had slipped off that political agenda. So much so that even at my time in the Assembly, not for me as an AM individually, but in terms of the structured politics, there weren't that many debates on housing. So I think one of the good news about the present time is that actually housing is right up there at the top. And I think it's very important that we make sure that it doesn't slip down again, all right? It could easily slip down again, but I think the fact that there was a commitment in the One Wales document. I don't know how many of you have read that, but if I just read out perhaps the key phrase from that are a couple of key phrases. Anyway, it was under the section Living Communities, a home for all. Everyone has the right to an affordable house as owner, as part owner, or as tenant. A stock of good quality affordable homes is the foundation of thriving local communities. The shortage of affordable housing to rent or to buy is one of the greatest challenges facing many communities in Wales. So it goes on a bit more, but those are the important phrases, isn't it? The recognition that a home, a safe and secure home, is absolutely essential for all, but that magic word that comes in, that it is part of communities too. And that relationship between not just building a house, as good as that may be, not just building a flat as good as that may be, but actually being part of a community, what I think of as a sustainable community, I think is really important. And one of the things I feel very strongly about this, as does the rest of the team, is that this work we're doing is not just a number exercise. You can achieve numbers sometimes, whether you can achieve numbers of housing in the right place, of the right quality, of the right type, that are going to last there forever and be part of the right community. That's more of a challenge. We've been down that path before. I've been there when we have made it a box-ticking exercise. And yes, there's a certain amount of satisfaction in putting those other boxes up and seeing people in good homes. But if they are not part of a real community, I think we're only doing half the job. So that's a personal view, and I hope that's something that might make a fit and accord with some of you here.